Isolation and loneliness. That's what COVID-19 has done to our loved ones in nursing homes. But recently, some of them had a little company. As you'll learn in tonight's Making a Difference report, a local man helped take them on a musical journey down memory lane.
I'll give it a whirl, but I ain't for that girl catching me.
There is something about music that can make you both forget and remember.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain.
That's why E.J. Glazer has come to McKnight Place Extended Care in University City.
When you play a retirement home, it's a concert and people are listening. And so I really enjoy it.
Far from folks in prison, that's where I wanna stay.
Coronavirus has isolated residents in nursing homes and retirement communities. But today, Johnny Cash has come for a visit. And Frank Sinatra, too.
All of me, why not take all of me?
And I play everything from Cole Porter to Willie Nelson to Johnny Cash to Duke Ellington.
Glazer has been part of the St. Louis music community for years with his trio Glaze and the Moonkings.
So in my 20s, I played music for a living for about 3 years, but I never had the confidence, didn't think I was good enough to do it for a living, so I got a real job.
But after a long career in sales and marketing at Charter Cable, Glazer recently retired, and music no longer has to play second fiddle.
Here comes the sun, here comes the sun.
He came to McKnight Place with a playlist, but as we watched him go from window to window, he made it personal, playing their song.
Twisting the night away.
She was a dancer in her younger days, so she wants to hear dance music. So I played Twisting the Night Away for her.
Rock and roll.
And sometimes his solo act became a duet.
But I always thought that I'd see you again.
My daughter Nikki accompanied me today.
Nikki Glazer is one of this country's top comedians.
Did you pass down music to her?
I tried, Mike. I tell you, it didn't take.
For as rich as you are.
Coronavirus has hit our senior citizens harder than anyone else. But for one afternoon, they could escape.
Yeah, it's heartwarming. And I love doing it.
E.J. Glazer and his window-to-window concert. One man hitting just the right note.
If you are among the very young at heart. I think you are.
E.J. tells me that he's going to do it again this week, and he's bringing his trio with him.
Howdy.
Howdy.
How are you?
Good.
Good.
For Pete Gordon, every step forward takes him back in time. That's what brings him to Glasgow, Missouri.
I think about where I've come from, what I've been fortunate enough to be able to accomplish.
Glasgow is home to a little more than 1,000 people. And a brand new ballpark, named after, perhaps, the greatest player no one has ever heard of.
There's a hole in the lexicon of baseball history that needs to include John Donaldson.
20 years before the Jackie Robinson era in Major League Baseball, John Donaldson was breaking barriers in the barnstorming era.
John Donaldson's known to have played in 725 towns all across the United States.
Donaldson would compete with and against teams of white players that included major leaguers in their off-season. But he was the big draw.
He was out in rural America with a heavily advertised circus-like mentality where they would advertise the greatest pitcher in the world is coming to your town, and thousands of people would come.
It was during this time that the left-handed Donaldson threw 14 no-hitters and 2 perfect games. You can find those records not in a Hall of Fame, but in Pete Gordon's Minneapolis basement.
John Donaldson's story tips its hand to you a little bit at a time. Here's Fremont, Nebraska.
For 20 years, he's been piecing together Donaldson's career like an historic jigsaw puzzle.
I study this all the time. I think about this all the time.
Connecting each small fragment to paint the big picture.
505 wins. We have 5,039 verified strikeouts, and every single one of those are in these boxes.
It was a photograph of Donaldson in a Minnesota museum that first caught his attention.
Here's a perfect game he throws out in Plentywood, Montana.
But now Gorton has enough material for his own museum.
Jamestown, North Dakota.
In addition to dozens of rare pictures, he's also unearthed this 1925 film, 39 seconds of Donaldson pitching.
He strikes out 18 guys that day.
Lady Jackets on 3. 1, 2, 3. Lady Jackets!
95 years later, Gorton's journey brings him to Glasgow.
Isn't it beautiful? Yeah, it is.
Donaldson's hometown.
I'm Pete Gorton.
Michelle Bryant.
Michelle, it's a pleasure to meet you.
And he hasn't come alone.
I would not have missed this for anything in the world.
What an amazing structure that we have here in a baseball.
Bob Kendrick, the president of the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City,
Occasions like today continue
is among the special guests on hand for the dedication of John Donaldson Field. And at a time in this country when we've been tearing down symbols of hate, they're also unveiling the John Donaldson statue.
This community has stepped up to erect a statue of a black man, but not just any ordinary black man, an absolute extraordinary black man, and to welcome their native son back home.
Part of our past is hidden behind the wall of segregation. Where equality is forbidden, it's easy to be forgotten. But Pete Gorton is righting a wrong.
A piece of the puzzle is coming back to life.
He's helped John Donaldson come out of the shadows of history and into the light. And Pete Gorton isn't done. Home isn't always the place you live. Sometimes it's the place you love. That's how Josh Spidell feels about Memorial Gymnasium in Columbus, Indiana.
This was Josh's home for 4 years.
Growing up, Josh was as much a fixture here as the hoops and the grandstands. But no one could have guessed how long the road would be to get back here. As a standout forward at Columbus North High School, the 6'7" Spidell was one of the top basketball players in the state.
I think it was 8th grade I got my first Division I offer.
Josh got offers from just about everywhere, and then surprised just about everyone when he accepted a scholarship from the mid-major University of Vermont.
You know, he just felt at home, I guess, and saw his role and his potential, and yeah, we were really fortunate to get him.
But on February 1st, 2015, in the middle of a senior year in high school, everything changed. One night, after scoring 33 points with 18 rebounds, the phone rang at his parents' house.
And they said, we need you to get to the emergency room. We need you to get here as soon as possible.
Josh had been in a terrible accident. He mistakenly pulled out of a fast food restaurant when a sport utility vehicle slammed into his Honda Accord. No one else was seriously hurt, but Josh had a traumatic brain injury.
I remember walking into the emergency room bay, and I remember people looking at me, like feeling sorry for us and shaking their head.
Doctors weren't sure he'd survive, but he woke up after spending 4 weeks in a coma.
And for the longest time I was always asked, is this a dream?
He couldn't talk, walk, or use his left arm. But his recovery was not about perfection, it was about progression. And every day he'd get a little better.
And we celebrated the small things.
Every little thing.
He'd do something, I'd go, man, you couldn't do that yesterday.
Through it all, the Vermont players and coaches stuck by Josh. And just 8 months after the accident, he was strong enough to make it to a Vermont game when they played at Purdue. A few months later, he enrolled in school, and the standing ovations continued. Only this time, they were coming silently from his teammates.
Whenever you see him, you can't really take any day for granted because, you never know what's going to happen, so you kind of want to cherish every moment.
Getting back on the court became Josh Spidell's therapy, but it was not likely to happen until last March, when Coach Becker and Josh's teammates hatched a plan to get him into a game and the box score.
I wanted to make sure that all the hard work paid off in some way.
Vermont, it's time for America East basketball.
It would happen on senior night, so Coach Becker reached out to Coach Will Brown of Albany, their opponent, to see if he'd think about letting Josh get an uncontested layup.
You know, I said, John, I don't need to think about this. I said, let's do it.
A very special senior day here in Burlington.
In sports, even great games are sometimes hard to remember, but few at Patrick Gymnasium will ever forget this night.
Fans were so into it, and there was a great buzz in the building.
And we're underway.
5 years after his terrible setback, Josh Spidell made his comeback.
Everybody gets a touch, and here's Josh Spidell.
Be out here and say I scored my first collegiate basketball points, can't put into words like what that means to me.
In my 20 years at Albany, I've never been so excited for an opponent to score against us.
For the world to see Josh make that layup, we hope that it was that reminder that no matter what life faces, surround yourself with people that love you, work hard, and know that God has a bigger plan.
Josh Spidell showing us all that success is no accident.